Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama. Parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm good, Scott. How are you?
Best I've ever been. Bradley, I'm proud to be in Mobile, Alabama, and I am proud that you did not have a Category 1 hurricane. I believe her name was, what was it, Debbie?
Debbie, yeah.
Debbie, fly up your ass this morning because we probably would not have been able to podcast this morning. Bradley, I've had lots of stories to tell in this last, I guess, 5 or 6 episodes of the podcast that we've done. Allow me to say that I am so happy right now, and I know we've got to go in just a second as far as starting these calls. Guys, very special episode of the podcast today. I'm going to just close my little peak book I have right here, my peak performance book, because we, ladies and gentlemen, are doing a call-in show.
Woo-hoo.
And I am super excited about it.
So we used to do these call-in shows.
Right.
And, guys, the way we would do it is we would be on Facebook Live, and the headphones, we would have the headphones around the phone.
Correct.
And people would, that's how they would hear. It was so janky the way it was put together. Now we have a fancy mixer board that Rand's phone just plugs right into it and people call in. It's phenomenal.
Hey, by the way, Bradley, I want to thank you publicly for getting that for us. I think it's something we've needed for a long time. You know,
I got to buy a new toy.
Well, we've been running this thing with duct tape and baling wire for about the past 2 years over here. So, all right, let's get to the getting. Ladies and gentlemen, the Insurance Guys podcast call-in show. First caller today, Mr. Charlie Gilmore, and I believe Charlie's agency is a shelter agency based out of Amory, Mississippi, probably, as the crow flies, 30, 40 minutes from my house where I grew up. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Charlie Gilmore. Charlie, what you got for us today?
Hey.
You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, man. Look, I'm in a bad area.
First-time caller, long-time listener, Charlie.
First-time caller, long-time listener. Charlie, what's happening today? What you got for us?
Man, I got a question for y'all. In the parts of where we have a dead market, and it's not completely dead around here, but like the biggest competition we have, everybody's outbidding us in insurance. And it's easy for me to explain it to an insured, but how is it that you train your staff to be able to keep pushing that and show people, hey, we may be slightly higher in premium, but this is the product we serve from this office, and this is the customer service. I'm having more trouble on training people to have that mindset and aptitude than it is doing the sell myself. Hey, but I'm big enough that I've got to have that kind of staff.
Charlie, can I ask you one quick question?
Sure.
I just saw on your business card that I already had, because you'd reached out to me 3 or 4 weeks ago before this, that you're a shelter agency. Am I to assume, and I'm just trying to get context here for Bradley to answer, because Bradley is not poor white trash like I am, so he does a much better job of answering questions than I do. But for Bradley's take on this, are you a captive agent and shelter is the only thing you have to sell, or do you have multiple avenues there?
Branding, we are captively. However, we do own our own brokerage that we write through when we cannot write it in our book.
Oh, you're one of those. I'm joking.
Unfortunately.
But the first thing you said was our agency's having trouble because we're losing out on a bunch of business from our, I guess, competitors in that area. Am I right about that?
Yes, sir.
And then how do we train our staff to,
have those conversations?
Or, okay, Bradley, would you like to lead the answer to that?
What product are we talking about? We talking about auto home? I'm not super familiar with shelter.
Yes, auto home. 9 times out of 10, when we sell life insurance, it's usually a younger couple, which we shake it at everybody, but product being home and auto more than anything.
Yeah. So this approach, it's 1,000 golden BBs. It's not a silver bullet. there may be 10 different ways to win that business. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the natural answers are you talk about the strength of shelter insurance up against the competition without bashing the competition. You know what I mean? But there's a few things that we do and have done in the past. You know, one really good question you can ask someone when they are shopping is, what's the reason you're shopping today? And by the way, all these things I give you, you're probably already going to know. But what's the reason you're shopping today? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say price. Mm. Other than price, is there anything else? It could be my agent doesn't answer my calls. I had a bad claim. You know, there's a million different reasons. A lot of times price is the trigger that makes them call, but there's an underlying issue that's crept up, and that's what you anchor your sale to. You know what I mean? I can't get my insurance cards online, or they renew every 6 months, and I hate changing insurance cards, or my agent's a jerk, or every time I call there, I have to talk to the receptionist and I can't get through to the agent. You know, there's a million different reasons. You anchor to that in the sale process. Beyond that, one tactic we used to use when I was captive, because a similar situation, you know, we had one auto product and about 50 different home products when I was captive. What we would do, let's say somebody called in and said, hey, I want an auto quote, and they're currently at a 5,100 liability limit, right? Well, we would up their limits to 500 and say, hey, look, here's the deal. And by the way, always ask somebody what they're paying now when you are intaking their information. I don't know if you guys do that, but you always need to know what you're up against, okay? So, hey, Ms. Johnson, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is I'm $20 a month higher, but the good news is you have 50 times the limit or 100 times the limit. I don't remember what the original example I gave was. And all of a sudden, you're coming at it from a different angle. And what that's going to do, because there's some people out there that are price shoppers, or excuse me, that are not price shoppers, but they position themselves almost as their price shoppers because, you know, TV ads for Geico and Progressive condition people to only be focused on price, even if they're not. So what you do, hey, Ms. Johnson, I got good news, bad news. Bad news is it's a little bit more expensive, but the good news is you have 10 times the limit. Let me explain how this limit works. If you're if you hit somebody in an accident and that attorney's suing you, in a lot of states, they don't know what your limit is. They're going to sue you for your net worth. That first number on that BI limit does not need to be a penny less than what you are worth. Mm-hmm. Are you worth more than $50,000? Yes, I am. Okay, well, that's where and all of a sudden you can filter out those people that are just pure price shoppers. And if that person cares about that limit at all, a lot of times they're going to consider you over the competition. Does that make sense? Are y'all having those conversations? And so you approach it from a different, whereas a lot of people, they say, hey, this is our price, matching your limits apples to apples. But I would recommend that's the wrong way to go about it. I think you start with the higher limit and then you work your way down. So you make that conversation more about coverage than it is about price. Some other word tracks we've used in the past is, yeah, you know, their product is $15 a month less, but I don't come with that. Mm-hmm. You don't get our agency. Here's what differentiates our agency. You know, Scott has a tagline on his email that says, what makes iProtect different? If you have a claim, you get access to Scott Howell. You know, what's that differentiating factor? Okay. On top of that, some things that I would look at is I would look at speed to quote. The best way to beat price is speed and convenience. Okay. How can we make our quoting and sales process faster? I don't know if you guys do internet leads, but a big thing with internet leads is the person that gets them on the phone is usually the one that's going to close it or has a greater chance. You know, a lot of people look at their close ratio and say, oh, we need to improve our close ratio. The best way to do that is what are the constraints in our quoting process and how can we get rid of those constraints? Okay, that's number one. And then the last piece of advice I would give you is you got to get more leads. Yeah. I mean, if you're having a sales problem and there's not a constraint in the quoting process, you got to get more leads. The reason I list that one last is fixing the constraints in the quoting process and the sales process. A lot of times if you add more leads to that, it's just going to make the problem worse. Now, that might still be good for you because if you get 1,000 leads versus 100 and your close ratio cuts in half, you're still selling 10 times what you were selling. However, fixing those constraints is ultimately what's going to lead you to success in the long term. And then, the other thing is, what's your competition's weaknesses? Yeah. And can we exploit those without bad mouthing the competition? Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example of something we did here at Portal, which being sort of semi-captive, you may or may not be able to do this, but we recognize that none of our competition were on comparative raters. So we built our own comparative rater. Mm-hmm. And we basically said, hey, we're going to be able to quote 5 carriers 5 times as fast as our competition by doing this. Thus, we're going to be quick. That goes back to that constraint example. Is any of that helpful?
That is helpful, dude. I'm sitting here jotting everything down you're saying. I can't type right as fast as you talk.
Well, yes. You can listen to it on the podcast. You can listen about 5 weeks.
Yeah, 3, 4, or 5 weeks. This will be up there. But all right.
Do you have a follow-up question before we let you go?
Well, can I answer?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay, Charlie. All right.
Yeah.
Here's Scott Howell's take. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet, 2 to 3 minutes. So the number one thing, and Bradley mentioned this when he started, and I thought he did a really good job of giving you some helpful tips, tricks. He mentioned this when he started. Most of the time when you ask a prospect that will become a client, why they called, the very first thing out of their mouth will be price, okay? But then followed up with, this is 1B. They'll say, well, I'm calling for price, but I also haven't heard from my agent in about 2 years. Or they'll say, sometimes they'll say, man, I've been paying insurance with such and such agency for 10 years, and I just had a roof claim, and they denied the claim, and I'm not putting up with it, that kind of thing. So what I would tell my agency force is this: the very first thing when one of your agents who actually quotes business needs to ask somebody when they call them, a prospect, what has you calling us today? You could do that in a friendly way. Don't sound like an asshole, but you know what I mean. What's got you calling us today? And then about number 6 or 7 question that Scott asks a client, okay, because I want to get to know them just a little bit and start getting some information to quote with. But somewhere during that information gathering, as we've started that, as I start building rapport with them, I'll say, Charlie, can I ask you a question? It's an A-B question, so you can answer A or B, okay? I'm going to say 2 words, Charlie. And you tell me which one's more important to you. 2 words. You can only have one answer. Service or price? Service or price? Which one's more important to you? A lot of times people will sit there for 5 or 6 seconds thinking about that before they answer. Next one. This is what Bradley Flowers does better than anybody in the country. You have just told us Shelter Insurance is in a place where y'all have got some competition that's beating your ass from time to time. Sounds like a lot. You need to be crazy ex-girlfriend. Remember that word, crazy ex-girlfriend, about keeping up with the state of Mississippi's who are the admitted carriers, who's coming into Mississippi as an admitted carrier, and you need to stay on top of that like you're keeping you Mississippi State or Ole Miss fan.
LSU.
Perfect. Better. That's even better.
Yeah, if you said Ole Miss, we were going to end the call.
So
I wouldn't have blamed you.
You need to keep up with that like you keep up with LSU football. You need to know in a moment's notice. And by the way, Bradley Flowers will echo this sentiment because we had a podcast on it earlier today. If there's a carrier that's coming to Mississippi, that's an admitted carrier, especially if they're new because they're going to have rate, you need to be all over them getting a contract, because what happens when a new carrier comes into an area? They've got rate, right? Cheaper. Yep, they got rate. So now your close ratio is going to go up. 2 last things, and then we'll go to the next one. Chat GPT, I would use that. Put chat into Chat GPT for the shelter contract in its entirety, front to back, 2-sided. Put that in Chat GPT and ask Chat GPT to compare that contract to your biggest competitor.
You're talking
there,
about the policy,
the actual policy into ChatGPT versus, and then put in as an attachment your biggest competitor's sample policy. And you can get that. One of your clients that went over there will probably give it to you. Put those two policies in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to compare the differences between the two, and then use that to say, hopefully, that Shelter Insurance has a better policy, and here's why. Does that make sense?
That's a good idea.
That does make sense. It's genius.
Last one. Fish where the fish are. If Shelter Insurance doesn't have a great rate and they've decided they don't want to do shit with homeowners insurance, or maybe you call Shelter's people that you're friends with and corporate, and you say, help me out. Tell me the demographic and the age group and all the stuff that I need to get the very best price from Shelter Insurance on a homeowner's policy. And they say 45 to 60 years old, house built after 2010, no more than one claim, 2 cars, and we need the couple that they need to be married, and they need to be between the age of 45 and 65. Well, there you go. That's what I'd go market after. Don't keep beating your head against the wall, or your agents continue to write or quote shitty prospect business that doesn't fit in that box. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Don't beat your head up against the wall, man. Go fish where the fish are, and fish with mother scratching dynamite. I wish I could say the F-bomb right there, but I can't. Go fish with dynamite. Go be crazy ex-girlfriend and figure out who you can get contracts with that do have rate.
All right, Charlie, we appreciate it.
We got to run. We love you.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, bye-bye.
That was good. Yeah.
Next one. Oh, we got another one?
Another caller, yeah.
Who is it?
Broker Brett.
Broker Brett. I love Broker Brett. What's his last name?
I have no idea.
Oh. I follow him on Twitter.
I know.
He's great.
He goes by Broker Brett. You need to leave him a funny voicemail if he doesn't answer.
Oh, I will. Oh, please don't answer. This will be the funniest thing ever.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Hey, Broker Brett. Hey, this is James Joseph down here off Piney Chapel Road. I'm one of your insureds, and hey, listen, I was calling today. I got me and my wife Tiffany. We've got a homeowner's policy with you. And last weekend, we had our family reunion over here at the house because the First Baptist Church down here, they were having some kind of event, some kind of fried chicken after church thing. So we had to have it over at our house. And my stepdaughter, Stephanie, she come over here to the house, and we've got an above-ground swimming pool back here. I got it over at Walmart. And she wanted to get in the pool because, you know, it's hot this time of year, and I told her she could. Now, she drops in there at about $4.50. She's a big girl, but she has a thyroid condition, and she got in that pool with our dog. His name's Oogie, and he's a half pit bull, half German shepherd. But they got in that pool, and she started throwing that ball to Oogie, and they were swimming around and having a good time. And all of a sudden, she went to push off that pool, and the whole thing collapsed. And there was about, 10,000 gallons of water that ran into my barn. And I was running a piece of equipment over there because I own that metal shop that y'all have also got that insured. And that damn barn caught on fire and slap burned down before the Piney Ridge volunteer fire department could get over here and put that thing out. And then once they did do that, one of the firemen, they were taking their volunteer fire truck out and then hit my Honda Accord when they were getting out of the. But anyway, call me back and let me know because I got to file a damn claim on this. Thank you. Bye.
Did it hang up? you recorded too long. It hung up.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
All right. No, call the next guy. I just sent you.
There is
I'm
nothing.
not going to tell you who the next one is.
Listen, there is nothing listeners, there is nothing in this world that I enjoy more than finding out that people listen to this show and I prank call their agency and do that. It is the most fun I ever have in my life.
We're going to elect a couple losers if nobody answers the phone.
Love prank calling people.
You've reached the voicemail of James Jenkins. I don't recommend leaving a voicemail message as it may be some time before I hear it. Please text me instead at the same number.
Okay.
If you need assistance with anything regarding risk, well, or an insurance program, please hang up and call our office at 469-678-8001. Again, 469-678-8001. Thanks.
Hey, James, listen, this is John Stevenson. I live down here off Rescue Road, just south of town, and I got a homeowner's policy with you, and I need to file a homeowner's claim. My house burned down yesterday. I had my wife, Tiffany, we were having her birthday party over at our house, and my two stepsons and a couple cousins were out there in the garage, and they found some damn bottle rockets, and they started bottle rocket fighting with each other. And one of Randy's boys, I think you know him from church. His name's Little Ricky. Now his daddy's name's Big Ricky, but his name's Little Ricky. Little Ricky, he took him a bundle of them damn bottle rockets, and he thought it'd be a good idea to put it in the gas grill. And he turned the damn grill on, and then when he went to light them, the whole damn side of my house caught on fire. All the way down the back side of my house. Looks like a damn dog's been chewing on it. I got burn marks, and then it started getting on some of my shingles too. And I called the volunteer fire department over there, and they come over about 30 minutes later, and we just about got it put out with a water hose by that time. But they took that damn fire truck and started breaking the front windows of my house out and back windows. And I've got about 750,000 gallons of water seeping out of everything in my house.
Are you making that up? Are you ad-libbing that as you go?
Yeah, I'm just ad-libbing.
All right, the next one is Buck Mancradle.
Oh, I like that. You want to call Buck Mancradle and I'll leave him one?
Call Buck.
This is my favorite thing to do anyway, so I'm happy as a pig in you know what right now.
You got Buck?
Hell yeah, I do. Buck, this is Scott Howell and Bradley Flowers, the Insurance Guys podcast. How you doing today, brother?
Scott Howell, how are you doing today?
Best I've ever been. If I was any better, I'd have to have twins. Hey, we've got answers and you've got questions. You're on our call-in show right now, so we just wanted to see if you had a question for the show that Bradley and I could both answer.
I do. I'm glad you called, Scott.
Thank you.
My agency's up here in Silver Lake, Wyoming.
Love it.
Specialize in EPA and local NRA organizations.
Sure.
And I've got one question for you, big guy.
Go ahead.
You seem like a very husky fella.
That would be, well, considering Bradley all morning during each podcast, because my T-shirts are too small and my belly's hanging out of it, has been taking pictures of me during the podcast with my belly hanging out over my shorts. I would say that is an accurate statement. Yes, Buck.
I bet you he's going to lose those later when he gets home, ain't he?
I bet so. Yep, that's it. What's going on? What kind of question you got?
Well, being that I'm a EPA guy out here in Wyoming, I want to know, how big of an animal you think you could take in a fight?
Oh, that is a damn good question, brother. So, fortunately for you, I've been doing a lot of thinking on that in the past 6 to 8 months, and I'm going to say the largest animal that I could fight off. Now, let me qualify by saying I would still need to go to the hospital for a lot of stitches. I'm going to guess it would be something the size of a mountain lion. I think I could fight off a mountain lion, and he would probably at some point say, yeah, this just isn't worth it. And by the way, let me add to that. I think I could fight off a 4 or 5 foot shark. Now, anything bigger than a 4 or 5 foot shark, we get into that 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot shark range. I just don't think, I think he'd kill me. But I'm guessing mountain lion would be about the biggest. I would have 0 chance against a grizzly. I think if I ran up on a moose out in Wyoming that was in heat, that was in rut, I think that would be a big problem for me. I don't think I could do anything with that much. Yeah, I'd say mountain lion would be about the biggest I could take.
What's your next question, Buck?
Oh, okay. I got one more for you. It's an FMK of the insurance industry.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what that stands for, Scott?
It's a commercial policy. That's
no, the M's. I'm not going to say the first word. The M stands for Mary, and the K stands for kill.
Oh, okay. Go. I'm ready. Yep.
Chris Paradiso.
Mm-hmm.
David Carruthers.
Oh boy.
And a Lou Gazatua.
Scott, before you answer that, do you know who this is talking?
Mm-mm. I thought it was Buck. Who is it?
What's up, buddy?
Who is it?
It's Clint.
What are you doing, man? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Clinton Orr. Well, it's so funny,
Did you really not know it was him?
I had no clue. I talked to so many people. Hey, Clint.
I was working on my accent for the last hour trying to dial it in.
Great
I was
job.
like, he's going to pick up on the mannerisms or something.
No. First of all, fantastic job on the masking. So for those of you that are listening that don't know, this is my business partner, Mr. Clinton Orr with I Protect Insurance. Clint, so good to hear from you, man. I'm glad you didn't make me answer that because I was sitting here desperately thinking what my answer was going to be. Clint, while we've got you on the phone, do we have any other callers? Or is
we
this
do.
it?
We do.
Okay. So I told Clint last time, I said, it's about time to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
So if we have any openings tomorrow, Clint, you busy tomorrow or you free?
No, I should be free.
Okay.
I got a 10 o'clock Zoom, but outside of that, I think I'm pretty open as far as timing.
I'll text you and let you know if we have an opening tomorrow, okay?
Sounds good.
I love you.
Bye, Clint. Bye,
I love you. Bye.
I love you.
Bye-bye. That was great because I had
his idea.
I had no idea.
All right, call the one before that one back. He said he's ready.
Is that James?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you really not have any idea?
None. 0.
It's hilarious.
I mean, he sounded like every one of my clients. It could have been any of them.
Yeah. B.
Hey, this is James.
James Jenkins. This is Scott Howell and Bradley Flowers. IGP podcast. Man, it is great to hear your beautiful voice. Hope you're doing well, brother.
Oh, thanks for the call, man.
Oh, no problem.
This is a fun little thing you guys are doing.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you got questions? We might have answers. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something, useful to add to the conversation.
Sure.
And I know Bradley loves himself an InsurTech carrier.
Right.
So my question was, there are several InsurTech carriers out there that have proven that they're focused on the IA channel. They work well with IAs that are already doing a great job. What is one, maybe two things that you guys are convinced these good carriers are missing out on as either a killer feature of some kind or an untapped opportunity that they could bring to market that would skyrocket them to some kind of massive success within our channel?
Yep.
So I think so many of these InsurTechs, some of whom I'm involved with, some I'm not, and some of them have come around thanks to podcasts like this and James's. I think they discount to some degree the ways that traditional insurance carriers operate, and it ends up being somewhat of a vulnerability because you have this weird InsurTech carrier that you're not sure how they fit in your agency process-wise. Let me clarify. things like Ivan's downloads. Okay, no question. The way those downloads get into our system needs to be innovated, right? And I think Reed Holsworth, who was on a few months ago, would agree with that. And I think that's sort of what we talked about. That's why he's at the helm. So many of them, I think, look at Ivan's downloads and think, we don't have to do that. Our technology is already so much better than that, right? But that creates a weird square peg in a round hole because, okay, now I have this InsurTech carrier that's super efficient on the front end, but I have to create a whole process on the back end to just get them to get their data into my system. That's number one. Number two is accounting. The accounting as it relates to downloads and not as it relates to downloads. I had an InsurTech carrier for a while that's been around since before Portal was started, which was in 2019, that I could not get as much as a CSV file with my commission statements. So my advice to a lot of them would be, hey, let's pay attention to what the traditional carriers are doing to make the process for an IA to put business with them. Let's look at all the things they're doing and let's cherry pick some of the things that are working well, and let's do some of those things, but some of the more not innovative things that make our lives harder, let's not do that. And another thing I would add to that, and it seems like every InsurTech carrier does this, James, is they go out and appoint everybody under the sun.
Amen.
You talk to, you talk to we just picked up a carrier who I'm not going to name, that's really hard to get here on the coast. And it took us about 3 years to get that appointment. But I can go to an InsurTech carrier's website and fill out a form and write business that day. I'm not so sure that it needs to be that easy. I would be a little bit more selective. The last thing I will add, which I think is why James brought up this point, is I would not appoint captive agents. I would focus IA only. You have to be IA, meaning you are eligible to be a member of the Big I. If you are not, you don't have to be a member, but if you're not eligible to be a member of the Big I or the PIA or AIMS Society or FAIA or the Latin American, if you're not eligible, we're not going to appoint you. There's too many of these newer InsurTech carriers that they see, a captive carrier that has a broker division and they have 600 agents. We're gonna appoint them and we get 600 agents. What they don't realize, and by the way, no disrespect to captive agents that write independent business. I used to be one of those, so I can corroborate this. The captive's going to get all of the good business. You are going to get all of the overflow, i.e. bad loss ratios.
Adverse selection becomes a huge problem.
And by the way, I did it when I was captive. And by the way, I don't mind saying this, I firmly believe that all of the captives that had the contract, the Giovera contract, is what ran Giovera out of Alabama, because all of the captives put all the bad business with them. So that's what I would say to that. I would love to get Scott's thoughts.
So I'm going to say two things, and I have never agreed with Bradley Flowers. In fact, while he was talking, I looked over at our videographer and I did the little clip sign. I said, clip this.
I think he knows.
Yeah. So, James, I'm going to add two things to this. Number one, and this is more of a wish than it is probably can actually happen, but maybe it could happen. I don't know. I wish that all of these new, what I call InsurTech carriers, could somehow, before and during the process of them coming out with the big splash and we're the newest, greatest, latest thing out there, because you and I both know what happens there. They come out guns blazing, and the next year, 12 months later, they start taking just enormous amounts of rate, or they say we're not going to do PC 9s and 10s or blah, blah, blah. I wish that those carriers could somehow have access to the, in some cases, hundreds of years of data from these blue blood carriers, so that when they did come out with their initial rate, it didn't have to change so much that next year. Does that make sense? Because all of them do the exact same thing. They hit the ground running. They appoint everybody, which is another problem. And the next year, you look up and it's time for renewals, and they're non-renewing half the book of business you wrote with them.
I also think, and I know, and I'm speaking mainly towards personal lines right here. I know auto is tough, but you've got to offer multiple lines to some degree because. Like here in Alabama, a monoline home carrier is sort of table stakes, right? Every customer down here on the coast, and probably where James is too, is used to having their auto in their home with two different carriers. But when you go to like Ohio and Michigan,
North Alabama,
it's like
bundled.
To try and sell that to the agents is really tough. And I've talked to some of these agents, and they're like, "Man, I don't have a spot for a monoline home carrier because the culture is so much that you have your auto and your home and your umbrella with the same carrier."
Right.
I would look at doing some sort of partnership, whether it, if you can't develop your own product, we all know that's really hard. I would look at doing some sort of partnership with a Clear Cover or a Progressive or a Geico or whoever.
Basically what Warren Buffett did with Geico, where they don't have I don't believe, a product, but they partner with everybody.
That's a huge vulnerability because if a lead comes in to say an agent in Ohio or North Alabama or North Texas maybe, and that agent is going to go to the bundle, quote unquote, bundle carriers first.
Right.
So you're kind of inadvertently getting the scraps to some degree.
So James, I'm gonna give you want some great news today that's gonna make you happy?
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Since you're the one that called in, I'm going to say this live on air. I'm going to say that you will be the very first agent that Bradley and I appoint for the product that I'm about to tell you about. Now, because nobody in the InsurTech carrier world developed this, Scott just went ahead and did it himself. And today, as we sit here, I'm pretty sure there's somebody today on my behalf meeting with Lloyd's of London in London to discuss this, but I've already got the product done. The product has already been done. We're just tweaking some of the things related to this. And then my plan of attack, and I haven't even had a chance to talk to Bradley about this, is to sell this product through the Insurance Guys podcast. So your next question is, well, what is the product, Scott? Well, for some period of time, I have had this belief based on my conversations with a lot of different people that were clients of mine and family members that there is a white space in the insurance industry for a very select group of people who are what I call baby boomers. Got a few of those out there. They have their home paid off, and all they want, now remember, they got to have their home paid off because you can't do this if you've got a mortgage on your house, but most baby boomers do have their home paid off. There is a white space out there for people my parents' age who are like 70 to 85 years old who all they want is what I call a catastrophic policy that does have a liability component to it with a high deductible. So for instance, the only real things that this policy is going to pay for is if your house burns down or blows away, okay? And it has to be, I can too, it has to be based on our adjusters and engineering third-party, adjustment of the claim, kind of like a total loss in a car event where it has to be at least 70% damaged. But if it gets to that 70% mark, the policy kicks in, and that particular person who's paid less because it's just a catastrophic policy would then, we would pay out for the whole thing. But we're doing away with all this $5,000 water damage claim or, couple shingles blew off the roof. None of that. It's a high deductible, catastrophic homeowners policy. And I've got it dearly to the finish line right now. I've got the product. We got to make a couple of tweaks. I don't know. The high deductible catastrophic policy. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
No, Scott, me being me, my very first question is, what about investment property? Because I guarantee you give me access to this in the first year, I'd probably sell $500,000 in premium.
Hey, the acronym
selling
for
it to
that
investors.
is HDCP, which also stands for handicap. So it's kind of a
right. So James, to answer your question, the people I've got meeting with Lloyd's today, and I'm serious. I've never been more serious about something in my life. I believe they are meeting with Lloyd's this afternoon in London. But one of the caveats to this policy, so originally it was going to be for just primary homes, but I have asked those people, because they're in that world, to discuss this same catastrophic policy, and that particular policy would be geared towards both single family investors that maybe own 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 rental houses, and small multifamily up to a certain level. Now, we can't do this on something that's like 10 buildings with, you know what I'm saying? It's going to have to be the older guy.
30 units
maybe,
typically falls out as the
the
line between small and medium.
Correct. And so that's what they're meeting about today, is try to help me develop this same primary home policy that I pretty much already have finished, but to do it through a Lloyd's syndicate for multifamily and single family investors.
Love it.
Yeah. So,
all right, James, appreciate it, buddy.
We love you, brother. Hey, you're going to be the first one. If we get this done, you'll be the first one to get the contract.
Love it.
All right, man. See you.
Tally Hill, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Are you really doing that?
Yeah. I got the product. I'll tell you off air.
He always does stuff without telling me.
Well, I want to run it through our podcast so we can, because I told them, I said, I want to advertise through it.
The next one, you calling him? Yeah, I sent it to you. Next one is David Carruthers.
God, he's...
You've reached the personal cell phone of David R.
Hang up, call again. He's got it on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah. I love these calling
You've
shows.
reached the personal cell phone of David R. Carruthers.
You've reached the personal cell phone of David R.
We calling you, brother. David R. Carruthers.
You've reached the personal cell phone of David R. Carruthers.
He's texting me right now.
Guys, if you want to get into commercial insurance and you're not real swoofed on it yet, you hadn't really gotten down in the weeds, call David Carruthers to email me, and I'll give you his number.
I'll tell you a funny story while we're waiting.
See if you can get into killing commercial. You'll learn more than you will doing anything else.
I'll tell you a funny story while we're waiting.
Now, Carruthers may cuss you out in the middle of it because he ain't going to put up with no nonsense, but you'll learn a lot. Go ahead. I want to hear the story.
He asked me to send him Rand's number.
Yeah. You just got time to tell it?
I just gave it to him.
While we've got some dead air, guys, I want to say that this episode of the Insurance Guys podcast is sponsored by
Nancy Pelosi Stock Picks.
Gillette, the best a man can get. Whether it's shaving, deodorant, soap, or any other men's grooming utensils, when you go to the store, ask for Gillette.
Have you seen what the stock market's
back to the episode.
You seen what the stock market's doing today?
It's
awful. It's like down like 900 points right now.
Good. Means I need to go buy some stock.
What's up, David?
I'm just licking my wounds from the stock market today, fellas. How about you? I mean, we had a tropical storm, hurricane, whatever it was, come through and just clean our plow. I don't know why the market wouldn't go down. You know what I mean?
I had a guy who was supposed to call in say, sorry, I can't call in. We got hit by a tropical storm this morning.
That's right. That's right.
I'll tell you what, man, it's crazy because Kyle and I were talking earlier. I think this tropical storm hit us worse than the last 2 or 3 hurricanes have, just with the amount of debris and crap around. It's kind of weird.
David R. Carruthers, I love you, and I just got through. We had some dead air space while we were waiting, so I started doing a plug for Killing Commercial. I hope you don't mind.
You know what? I don't mind at all, and I really appreciate that, man.
Tell me about you, what you been up to. I know you were headed to Kansas City. You've had a lot going on. I know this is a call-in show, and I'm more than welcome to ask a question. Usually I'm the one calling you asking questions, so I kind of feel funny about that. But
Hey, first time caller, long time listener.
Tell our audience real quick what is going on in terms of the agency at David Carruthers agency, changes going on, things that you're tweaking in the year of our Lord 2024, like halfway through the year here.
You know what, man? This is the time to get real transparent and real vulnerable with everybody out there listening. I'm going through the same shit all y'all are going through. It doesn't mean that, just because I've got a podcast and other things where I teach people how to go out and sell, that somehow I'm bulletproof and immune to market conditions. That's just not the case, man. We're fighting to keep accounts just like everybody else is fighting to keep accounts. And it's a position, quite frankly, we're not used to being in, because we do a good job. We go in, we deliver on what we say we're going to do. We deliver a great risk management value proposition, but hard markets and hard times require people to make hard decisions, and our clients are shopping us just the same as everybody else is. And if they get the right person whispering into their ear right now, they're getting a conversation, and it's making our job a little bit tougher than it has been the last few years.
Right. So the very first podcast we did this morning, I did the exact same thing, and we covered the same topic. Now, what are you seeing that's working for you when you realize or what however it comes about that you realize some of your bigger accounts are shopping? What are you doing? Are you immediately going into, hey, I need to meet with y'all, we need to go over all your stuff? Or tell us what you're doing.
No, I'm not. It's not really my style. I feel like if you immediately go in defensive mode like that, it's almost like they think that you feel guilty that you've not done something that you should. And so I think really the biggest change for us, when we bring a middle market account on, one of the things we do is we ask them to give that carrier 3 years. We don't shop an account every single year, because a lot of times we're visiting the sick, and we need the carrier partner to be around, because there may still be some claims activity in year one, but our processes have proven we're going to clean those accounts up. And so, years 2 and 3 tend to be more profitable if one is not quite as profitable as they would have liked. And so because of that, we don't run the same marketing activity that a traditional insurance firm would, where they're going to the marketplace every single year and hitting a bunch of different markets. So really, the biggest thing for me that's been the biggest change is having to go out and do that marketing due diligence. And, if I was going to give anybody advice, which I am, whether they want it or not, it would be to go be very proactive in how you do that. And I'm not talking about, doing the old trick we know that certain national firm does, where they shotgun every underwriter just to block the market. I'm talking about a real due diligence marketing effort where you can go back and show your client exactly what you did and how you got to what you're recommending. And I'm going to give you a real personal story. It's an account that's in my personal book of business. That's a paving company here. And I actually talked about it, wrote a blog post about this last week, but I got called out, man. And you know what? The owner was dead right. It was an account that was smaller when I brought it on. It's grown up to about 150,000, 200,000 in premium, and they're growing their business. I was growing mine, and I'm always doing my best job for them, but I blew it because I wasn't communicating with them the way I should have to let them know that I was doing the best job for them. And unfortunately, they got their automatic renewal. Well, they got a non-renewal first from the carrier that they were with. And then I went back and I was able to negotiate that carrier rescinding that, but they issued a renewal that was double the premium, and it took the auto on this account up to about $155,000. And I immediately did what any of us would do. I started going to my other markets, having conversations and getting quotes. Problem was I didn't tell that to the owner. And so the owner thought that my best number was going to be that $155,000. And they went out and started talking to other agents. And here's why this is important, people. It's not just about retaining your book. It's about doing what we're supposed to do. And that's protect the people who count on us to protect them. And I know this is going to sound weird, but I did them a disservice by not communicating, because their first thing was to go to another agent and get quotes. And so they did. And that agent came back with a quote from a competing carrier that was at about $55,000 or $60,000. And I had worked my way all the way down from 155 to 125 to like 83 or 84. And they didn't know the difference between the two quotes. And so I said, listen, you know what? we're in a tough market, and I get it. If you got to leave me on price and it's apples to apples, leave me on price. You'll come back at some point because they're not going to be able to do for you what we do. And you'll realize the value in that down the road when things soften up a little bit. But they agreed to do it, and they sent the quote over, which is why the incumbent should always get the last look, people. When you're in the incumbent, you better demand it. And they sent it over, and it was missing a 2024 Chevy Colorado that was brand new. Didn't even quote that. Pulled $1 million in uninsured motorists off the policy, completely removed MedPay, and it had an endorsement that was very, very specific that every single driver had to be named and approved on the policy before they were put behind the wheel of a vehicle, or there would be no coverage for them. And this is an account that notoriously had a hard time communicating with us when they had driver changes. And so they sent it over, and I sent my comments back, and the owner said, I really wish you would have been more proactive in your communication. I got this other quote. I'm thinking hard about it. And I'm like, listen, I said, I'll be honest with you. If you're thinking hard about it after I've told you all the differences in it, you're probably better served, going with another firm, because I'm not willing to put my own neck on the line. I know for a fact you put your family in that Colorado that you drive, and if you end up getting in an accident and they get hurt, you don't have any coverage to take care of the medical bills for your spouse and your children. And I couldn't sleep at night knowing I put you in that position. Every single night I would wake up hoping you hadn't gotten into a wreck with your family in your car.
Right. So I'll say this, David, we have faced the exact same issue with Clint Orr, who writes a lot of our HAB business. Customer calls or client calls, or that we call them around the renewal time. Maybe, a lot of these multifamily apartments are being non-renewed by standard, admitted markets. So we're having to go excess and surplus with those accounts. And Clint will start working on it. And we've made some adjustments to try to, kind of like you said, make sure nothing falls between the cracks on the communication. But there was a period of time earlier this year where Clint and Kaylin Weston were working these remarkets and taking them to, our wholesale brokers that we use and doing all the right things, but then they weren't communicating that to the client. And where that leaves the client is, well, shit, I'm 10 days away from my renewal and I hadn't heard a word from them. And so it's that lack of communication that, in my opinion, a lot of times will cause someone to be jostled enough to go, either answer that phone when another agency calls, or maybe even call another agency. And so we've faced some of those same challenges. Now, I want to ask you before I let you off this call, and you're supposed to be asking us questions. Instead, I'm going to ask you one. I have done every single conceivable thing I know to do besides fly Chinese. I have not flown a Chinese weather balloon over the corporate headquarters of Fairmatic. But we lost a $100,000 account 2 months ago that we could have had. I've got an account right now that the business auto with a standard admitted carrier, really good carrier, they're paying $45,000 a month for. Cannot get Fairmatic to call me back. Cannot get them to email me back. Is there another telematics vehicle type carrier besides Fairmatic out there that I could call on?
So it's not lost on me that you asked me this question over text, and I may or may not have gotten back to you in a timely fashion. So if I didn't, I'll take my lumps on that one. But what I did find out, because just like I didn't communicate well enough with my client, I was actually working for you behind the scenes too, my man. And what I found was that they're only going to work through wholesalers moving forward.
Okay, that's why they're not answering mine.
If I were going to hook you up with somebody, I would hook you up with John Mason at Shenango Brokers, because I know he has a contract with them specifically, and he's always putting stuff out about them. But you may want to reach out to John, or Brad, somebody in your agency, reach out to John.
Okay.
And just ask them how the best way to go about it would be. I mean, I'm sure he would prefer that you guys work with him, but he also has a contact, I'm sure, that he can get you in touch with. My guy was Jim Anderson, and he's no longer there. I used to be able to reach out to Jim, and he'd answer me right away.
Right. No, so that leads me to my next question. What's the reason or purpose behind them moving away from working with individual agents and going the wholesale broker route?
I didn't ask the question, but I have a feeling I know the answer. Part of it is the fact that you know as well as I do that if somebody comes out and says, "Hey, I got a new product in trucking and auto, and I'm looking for distribution," every agent and their brother and then some is going to raise their hand wanting a contract. The next thing you know, they're not getting the distribution they need. So I think if I'm the CEO of that company, I probably would want to have a limited access distribution strategy so I could control the quality of what I was getting and make sure that people were actually hitting their numbers. The second part of that, though, is it's a complicated product, man. I mean, it's not like you're selling a regular auto policy. You need to understand exactly how it's rated. You need to be able to articulate that to the person that's going to buy it from you. And if you can do that, you can have a really powerful business conversation, because I can tell you, man, one of the things I really like about it is the fact that it's individual driver rated.
Right.
So you can actually have that data and make business decisions about who drives what routes based on what rate you're paying and actually run a more profitable company. The technology is fantastic. It just appears that the communication's a little lackluster, and I have a feeling it's because they're making that transition over to the brokerage channel.
Yeah. And is there somewhere on Google or somewhere where they have a list of the wholesale brokers there? Because I may already have a relationship with a broker I could use without going through somebody else, but I don't know which brokers they're using and which ones they're not.
You know what? I'm not sure, but I'll find out for you. My guess is the big players all have it. I would imagine Amwins, RPS, RT probably are all dealing with them in their auto unit, if I had to guess.
Gotcha.
All
Bradley,
right,
you got any questions?
Nope, we got another caller, so we're going to let you go.
We love you, brother.
Go ahead. See you guys.
All right. See you. Bye.
Call that second guy.
Guys, if you are in commercial insurance, especially mid-market, like David is, some degree, I think Bradley and I both are kind of in that. You got to communicate with your customers, and I don't mean communicate like at the renewal or to remarket. I'm talking about communicating.
I tell my team all the
this
time,
is where we're going. This is who we're going out to. Here's the 4 quotes we got back.
Communication solves all your problems.
Every
90%
time.
of your problems.
Every time. Let me do another voicemail.
Nah.
You've reached the voicemail of
that's
James Jenkins.
Sorry. The second one, the second guy.
Get James back on the show, baby. I got him fired up. He's ready to go. My communication, my new high deductible catastrophic home and investor product that every agent listening to this is going to want.
Hi, this is Brett.
What's up?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing, buddy?
Brett, guys, you are listening. Man, I'm so proud to have you on here. You are on the Insurance Guys podcast, Bradley and Scott. We're doing our call-in show today.
And we've got 6 minutes before our next podcast.
That's it. You've got questions. We've got answers, brother. How you doing today?
I like it. I like being on the clock. I'm doing well, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Go ahead.
You should actually have a great voicemail from Scott if you check your voicemail.
All right. I believe it. Definitely. Bringing the heat as always, I'm sure.
Go ahead with your question, Brett. What you got today?
All right. So my question that I posed earlier was, how do you guys keep the magic alive after all these years? How do you how do you keep the pace up, the warmth, the fun?
Boy, I can't wait to hear Bradley Flowers' answers to that. Now, when you say magic, we talking wife or we talking business?
Oh, sometimes they get kind of close. I mean, business relationship, of course, but it's a real one. There's regular communication. There's deals. There's schedules. What's the business partner podcast?
I think he means with you and I
in the fold. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. You're talking about with me and Scott, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Go ahead, bro. If you want to, or I'll answer it if you want me to.
I think there are very few relationships in your life that just work, that you don't have to work at it, and you just click. Some of you guys listen to this are probably like that with your spouse. You may have a business part, but the two personalities in our case are so different that they just click together. I think I think it's just a natural thing that just works. I think also there are things that Scott is good at that I'm not good at. I think there are things that I'm good at that Scott's not good at. And I think we recognize those strengths and sort of yield to that other person of like a lot of the business dealings. I handle a lot of that and then bring you in towards the end.
Yep.
You know, I think that the entertainment and energy value, you know, I'm feeling pretty energized today, but there's some podcasts that I don't feel like entertaining people. And if I did, I wouldn't be good at it, that Scott is really good at. And I yield to him to kind of carry that. You know, we had a podcast earlier today that Scott said, Bradley, I'm gonna need you to carry this one. You know, I just think it works.
Yeah, I do too. I think my answer to that would be this. Okay.
Regular date nights.
I think for Bradley and I everything he just said, I agree with wholeheartedly. But I will also say, you know, there's that old saying that distance makes the heart grow fonder.
True.
And you know, one of the things that I think people don't understand about Bradley and I is we might go 2 weeks without even speaking to each other on the phone.
Or longer.
Yeah. I'm 5, almost 6 hours away from where Bradley's at because I'm in the furthest northern, 10 miles from the Tennessee state line, and he's in Mobile, which is almost in the Gulf of Mexico.
You're also the type of person that it's easier to get you on the phone in the morning than it is the after. At least I've noticed that. And I'm the opposite.
Right.
So that doesn't help that.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So we might go 2-3 weeks without speaking to each other. And certainly there is a sense of that distance making the heart go fonder, that when we do get it, when I do come down here every couple 2 to 3 months, that there is an anticipation there of, hey, we're going to get to spend some time together, that kind of thing. I think like any relationship, whether it's a marriage or a business partnership or a podcast, whatever it is, you have to have a level of respect for somebody that you're partners with, and you have to understand it and be empathetic to what they're going through. And know that, there may be days when I call Bradley and he's not in a great mood, or he may call me and I may have had some crazy shit just happen to me that I'm just not all there, but being understanding of that. And then the last thing I'll say, and I think this is a very important point, is there's a bond that you share with people when you go to war, when you're in the Marine Corps or the Army together, where you've both chewed the same dirt. Does that make sense? Like you've both been through whatever that thing was, right? And I think there's a certain level of that with Bradley and I, where, we both together have chewed a lot of the same dirt. And I think that brings us closer together, almost like a platoon that's been in Afghanistan for 9 months together.
Also anxiety medication, lots and lots of anxiety.
Yes.
I'm joking.
But I think all that, if I could combine all that into a bowl of a pot of chili, that's kind of probably what makes it keep the magic going, if I had to guess.
All right, Brett, appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
I like it. Thanks, guys.
Before we close out, Rand asked me earlier, what was your question? How do you stay motivated when you hit a plateau? Is that right? Do you have a mic over there?
I don't.
Okay.
But
you need one.
So how do you, as a business owner, I've been a business owner for 4 years now. I'm not in the insurance.
He's saying been a business owner for 4 years now.
I've been a business owner for 4 years.
Yep.
And I'm making money.
Making money.
Making a good living. Doing what I'm doing, but I feel like I've hit a plateau. And
Can you qualify the plateau?
Yeah,
Is that like burned out? Burned out?
Or not motivated to do the work?
just not motivated to continue to pushing the envelope to keep
Yeah.
growing. You have other people, competition that pops up on a daily basis, and you reach a point where it's like you don't want to push anymore.
Yeah. Can I answer?
Please.
I have those days. I have 21 employees now. Every time I look at my phone, I have a fire to put out, and I don't like putting any of them out. I think it's recognizing that the lulls and the plateaus and the bad days are just a part of the process. And there's a macro thing to focus on and a micro thing to focus on. The macro thing is, what's that big great white buffalo that you're chasing? Like, where do you want to take your business? Where do you want it to go? Like, what's that thing? I have big goals for Portal, and that's what, hey, this this is a part of the process of, if I want to get a 6-pack, there's going to be a lot of pain in working out to getting there, but fixating on that 6-pack is what's going to get me there. And then in the micro, I think it's focusing in between all of the difficult stuff you're working on. It's working on stuff that makes you happy. And because in those days, it's there are some things that you do like doing that you don't have to, that the bad stuff will overshadow. It's looking at that in a vacuum and, okay, what's the thing that I can work on today that's going to kind of get me going, that I like doing. You know what I mean?
Would you say do that first in the morning or last?
Probably.
So you could look forward to
There's an argument for doing the thing that I always like doing the thing I'm dreading the most first. I don't always adhere to that, but usually the thing that I'm like last week, I had to make a phone call to a client that I didn't want to make. And you know how many clients I talk to, not many. And I put it off for a couple hours, and finally I just called her, and it went great, and she actually sent a referral. Could not have gone better. I mean, you're delivering bad news to a client, and they send you a referral. There's not a better scenario. You know what I mean? But that's kind of what I do when I'm feeling down is focusing on the big goal, and that all of this stuff that I'm going through now are steps to get me there, but then also, hey, what's something I can work on today that I really like? And hey, by the way, it may not be work related. It may be taking an hour of escapism and going to the gym or going to play a video game or you know what I mean? Like it could be a million different things.
Right.
So that's what I would say to that. But ultimately I think it's just a part of the process. Like what you're going through, there hasn't been a business owner that hasn't gone through it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
So let me piggyback off what he just said. I agree with everything Bradley just said. I'm going to say a couple of things that are a little different. Number one, I think that however you feel every day, you've got to show up.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got to show up. But before I got to that point, which was my second point, the first thing I would do if I was Rand is I'd go home tonight. At least by Saturday, I want you to text me and tell me you've done this, okay? Because I think it'll really help you. I want you on the back of a cocktail napkin or a legal size notebook or wherever you want to put it. I want you to tell me, I want you to send this to me to figure out, number one, what is my candy mountain up here in terms of, because every business is built to sell. There's never been a business that wasn't, the people can say all the time, I'm not going to sell my business. I'm not going to sell my, everybody has a number, right? But I want you to go home and give serious thought to where do I want to take this business that I have? Okay. And outline that. And then let's say one day when you're 50, how old are you now? 25, 26, 27. I'm 27 now. At 50 years old, I want to sell my business for this much. And I want you to circle that number, whatever that number is. Okay. And I think what he just said to his point, I think that will help you stay motivated if you've got that thing, whatever that thing is out there, because now that's your North Star, right? That's everything I do is going towards that. And the age I want to retire at and what I want to sell my business for, I think you need to show up every day, no matter whether you've got COVID, whether you've got appendix rupture, no matter what happens in your life, figure out a way to show up every day. And then I think one thing Bradley's told me before that I've never forgotten, because you'll say a lot of things to me, Bradley, and I know you think I don't ever listen, but I really do listen. But a lot of times I have to spend some time thinking about them. To his point earlier about what's the thing I love to do the most. So the thing I love to do the most in the insurance industry now is podcast. So I really look forward to getting to come down here. It's kind of like a treat for me. I get to come down here and podcast and talk to my friends and see Bradley and have hot, dirty monkey sex with my wife in Orange Beach. But for you, what I would say is this. Also, another thing Bradley taught me that he doesn't know that I remember is figure out all the things you do during the day with what you do that you don't like doing. And if there's some way, blood, bleed, or blister, that you can take that off your plate or hire somebody, that maybe you can afford to hire somebody to do that thing that you just dread doing from the, and here's how you'll know it. If you start dreading it the night before, almost like we did when we were in school, going to school on Mondays, you start dreading it on Sundays. Figure out some way, if you can, to take that off your plate, because now you're going to have that feeling of, oh my God, I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
There's that. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to say. You are 27 years old, okay? I don't know anymore that I believe in burnout necessarily. I will say this, though. If Scott Howell's burned out, and I think I have been to some degree, okay, this last year or two, three, because I've had so many crazy things happen. I do think at 52, I'm probably legitimately have been a little burned out. But at 27, it's hard for me to buy into the whole burned out at 27 years old. But I'll say this, okay? The thing that I think Bradley has taught me the most in our time together over the last 7 years is figure out what you love doing. For me, it's podcasting. Try to take off your plate or your shoulders the things you don't like doing and hand those off to somebody else if you can, okay? And ultimately, at 27 years old, and this is why I'm saying I'm 52, you're 27. If you start this thing where every day you're getting up, dreading doing videos for realtors or coming in here and doing this, you might want to follow the Gary Vaynerchuk method. You know what that is, don't you? From high school to 30 years old, try something different.
Yeah.
And because if I don't love this at 27, I can promise you ain't gonna love it at 52.
The other thing I would do, and I do this. Do you have a job you used to do that you hated before, like a job somewhere you used to work? Where did you used to work that you hated? Okay, so like when I'm having my worst days here at Portal, I think back to when I was at Alpha, and I'm like, would I rather be doing that now? No. Right. Because you know, like when I was at Alpha, I was having fun. I enjoyed it while I was there. And then once I started doing this, I was like, man, this is way more fun. Mm-hmm. This is way more fun, you know? And you know, I always think back to that when I'm having, and I'm like, would I trade that? No, I wouldn't. And I have not had one bad day here, and we've had some bad days here that I would trade to go back. So sometimes it's good to be like retrospective and say, would I rather be doing that now? No, you know what? I'm pretty good. You know, like I remember when you know we started Portal, the worst thing that we could have that could happen to us would be an E&O claim, and we had one. It ended up $0 was paid out. It all worked out. But I'm like, you know what? That still wasn't that bad. Like compared to me being in a freaking war zone every day at a job that I hated for a company that didn't appreciate me, wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's like, okay,
perspective.
Pretend you can wave a magic wand and okay, none of this happened, and you go back. You know, you got it pretty good. You can go do what you want when you want. You know, that's the beautiful thing about owning a company is you can do that. You know,
so
you need to close us out. Our next guest is waiting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So two things I'm gonna add to what I just said. Number one, my wife is my biggest champion. In the days that I'm having a bad day and I come home bitching about whatever's happened, she always says, Scott, you can do anything. Just sell the agency and go do something else. And I'm talking about outside of insurance. And I say the same thing to her. Kim, I appreciate you being my biggest champion, but there ain't nothing I could do where I can make more money than this. And I'm already in it without going back to school for 3, 5, 7, 9 years. It's going to be very hard for me to do that. But I will say this, the people I have noticed that get burned out in any occupation, typically it involves something, and I see it with producers a lot because it's monotonous. Like, the first time you do a quote, it's kind of fun and it's something new and you don't really know what you're doing. After about 10 years of quoting homeowners insurance, you don't think that shit gets monotonous? It's like riding a bicycle over and over and over every day for 10 years. Same thing with Clinton Orr. He gets this thing where he's like, I'm burned out. And I'm like, well, I think part of that's that monotony of doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And I could keep saying over and over. It's almost like being in prison. And if you're feeling burnout, that might be part of it. Are you waking up every day and going to video another house for another real estate over the course of 5 years or 3 years? It gets pretty monotonous, right? How can you break up that monotony? What can you do to change it up? And this deep dives into, don't have time to talk about it, but habits versus rituals. I'll ask you the question. I've been asking everybody for 6 weeks now. Everybody looks at me crazy. Do you brush your teeth before you get in the shower, while you're in the shower, or after you get out of the shower? After? Okay. There are people who brush their teeth which one are you?
Depends on when I take a shower, but after. Usually.
You're after? Okay. There are people who brush their teeth in the shower that when you say that, which you just said, which is now a ritual, you do it every time, would think you're nuts. Why on God's green earth would you brush your teeth after you get out of the shower? What I'm saying is habits become rituals.
Okay? I'm sitting here thinking if I brush my teeth in the shower, I can save time.
Right. There's some bitch out there listening to this.
That.
There is a guy out there listening to this right now that when he gets out of the shower and towels off and does whatever he does, goes in his bedroom butt naked and puts his socks on before he puts his underwear on. And he thinks that's okay. But I guarantee you there's somebody that does it.
Billy Wagner has a robot that brushes his teeth while he's in the shower.
Well, so you just brought up a great point. That's why you brush your teeth in the shower is efficiency. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're taking a shower and brushing your teeth pretty much the same time. That's another podcast for another episode. I need to shut us down, but I'm just going to say I hope that some of what we just said helps you a little bit. Okay. Guys, you're listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.